what will really make you a happy person? And young people at age 18 are getting to the point where they see that there are certain problems, maybe with the idea of just pursuing money or pleasure or drugs or whatever it is. They're beginning to recognize that some of the apparently easy answers are not going to work. And they're open to a consideration of thinking about the question of what is happiness.
Welcome to Christendom Conversations. Together we'll explore the wisdom of the Catholic intellectual tradition, engage with thought-provoking ideas, and uncover deep insights into the perennial questions. We're thrilled to have you with us. Let's dive into today's conversation. Well, it's a great pleasure to welcome Professor Stephen Baldner to this episode of Christendom Conversations. You're on campus because you'll be giving a lecture tonight, the Aquinas Lecture, which is one of the big lectures we do every year here at the college as part of our collegiate lecture series. If I'm not mistaken, your topic is Aquinas and Descartes on creation.
That's right.
Which leads me to think about origins and origin stories. So I wonder if you'd say a bit about how you became a philosophy professor. So what was your origin? Did you grow up reading philosophy? How did you get from there to here?
Okay, I hardly knew what philosophy was till I became an undergraduate. I went to the University of Michigan, not out of some great understanding of what that university was all about, but it was a place where others went, and so I thought, okay, I'll go there as well. And I can honestly say that I had the experience of falling in love with the institution, the life. Everything about the university was so different from the world of business or school or church that I had been used to in my childhood and teenage years. And it was marvelous. I loved the buildings, the architecture, the fact that adults were interested in ideas to talk about the kinds of things that I had thought about, but in the most inchoate sort of way.
Right.
And that these people would take inquiry seriously and try to teach. And it was fabulous. I really fell in love with, I would say, the academic life. And I didn't immediately know that I wanted to do philosophy, but I knew right away that I wanted that life.
Right.
And as my studies progressed, I did kind of work in intellectual history, which interested me then and still. But then became more interested in philosophy. And then it was really when I got to graduate school and that I got the love of Aquinas. I had one really outstanding professor there, a Dominican, Father James Weisseipel, and
yes.
yeah, he was
Wow.
a really great Thomist. He taught Aquinas in a very clear and compelling way, and it came home to me. This professor is teaching this because it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
So he wasn't just presenting another
Right.
philosophical position of interest, and you could look at it this way. Okay, you need to know this because it's true. So that was kind of my my undergraduate experience, kind of falling in love with the intellectual life, and then in graduate school, really getting that wonderful, very focused on the natural philosophy, the study of nature and natural science. That Aquinas from that side, as well at Toronto. I was also being taught by another really wonderful tradition in Thomistic scholarship from the thought of Etienne Gilson.
Mm-hmm.
So Joseph Owens, Armin Maurer, and Father Walter Principe, Father Sinan, These were great Thomists, kind of more on the kind of metaphysical side of things, and concerned with really the problem that I'm dealing with now, the problem of creation. So I got more about that from them, I might say. But my sort of general Thomism and love of natural philosophy and thinking about Aquinas in relation to natural science was from my disciple. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, he's legendary. I think I
yeah,
have a collection of his articles at home in a
y-
file somewhere.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's really
yeah.
it's a great. That's amazing. Well, and you said you've also, I think you mentioned that you've looked forward to more modern philosophy. So tonight you'll be talking
Yes,
about Descartes as well.
that's right.
Can you say a bit about that relationship?
Sure. Aquinas has the um, merit, always, I think, of hitting the proper balance and in solving problems. So he has a very good way to explain how it is that God is causing the being of all things, and it's universal, it's ongoing, it's everywhere. Like nothing now would exist but for God's constant causality, and it's intimately involved with things. And yet, Aquinas also has a very robust way to explain how it is that creatures are fully enabled to do their own causing, to be full
Yeah,
causes of things in their own right. So he doesn't fall into the trap of saying, well, God is causing everything, and really there's nothing left.
right,
Creatures are doing nothing. So it the great advantage, I think, of looking at Aquinas is to see that both of those sides are kept. Whereas when you get into the modern period, the causality exerted by creatures is really reduced more and more
right.
to the point that a number of the thinkers, and I'm going to make this argument about Descartes tonight, a number of the thinkers hold a view that is called occasionalism, which essentially says that on the occasion of my lifting this cup, really God is doing the heavy lifting, the light lifting, all the lifting,
Right.
and so that
Mm.
is kind of is the problem you get into with modern philosophy, and so that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And again, the great merit to Aquinas is that he strikes the right balance. And
Right, right. Well, he was very concerned about empirical matters as well.
mhm,
And, my understanding is he got a lot of that from his great teacher, Albert the Great. And
yes,
a member of our faculty that you've worked with, Professor Steve Snyder, he
that's right.
worked on Albert the Great. So
Yes,
can you say a bit about Albert and
happy
how he fits
to,
into this?
happy to. Yeah, Albert, I think, is one of the underappreciated great figures in the history of our tradition, more than just the Catholic tradition. And the thing to realize about the 13th century is that it was a time of uh, a really thoroughgoing scientific revolution. And the work of Aristotle hit the 13th century universities and the 13th century thinkers as a really revolutionary view of the world. Here is a completely secular physics, metaphysics,
Right,
logic, ethics, political philosophy, logic. I mean, it's all. And uh, in a number of ways, the position of Aristotle seemed to be challenging to some of what we hold on the faith. Creation is
right,
one of those problems. The problem, for example, of whether the world was eternal or not, and could such a world be eternal? Okay, so Aristotle comes along with this enormous intellectual explanation of
right,
everything.
right,
And the question is, what? Well, how should we respond? Well, Albert, the genius of Albert was to have welcomed Aristotle, to have said, "Look, he's not right about everything, but understanding Aristotle is really going to further our understanding of the faith and of theology and of the world that we live in. There's something parallel to that today. I mean, what is the attitude of the religious person towards natural science? Do we are we afraid of it? Do we
Right.
do we think it's harmful to the faith? Or, going to lead us away from what we believe, or you more get this. You often get this on the other side. People with a scientific background thinking that religion is backward and
Sure.
retrograde as far as science is concerned. So Albert's attitude towards science, towards Aristotle, I think sets a very good standard for us today. And Aquinas saw that right away.
Right. Right.
Aquinas was educated at the University of Naples, a secular university, but he met Dominicans there. There was a little house of studies there,
Right.
and he became a Dominican then. his his family hated this. They wanted
Right.
him to be the abbot of Monte Cassino, and this would have been financially and politically good for the
Right.
Aquino family. But Aquinas became a Dominican, went to Paris, was educated there by Albert, and then Albert took him to Cologne, where Albert set up
Mm.
his new house of studies, and Aquinas was his able assistant on matters academic,
Sure.
and that was apparently where the story about Aquinas being called the dumb ox. He was a
Right.
big, yeah, and
Big guy.
so, but he was taciturn. He did so dumb in that sense.
Yeah.
And Albert
That's
is
funny.
supposed to have said, "You may call him the dumb ox, but his bellowing will be heard throughout the ages." Yeah.
Yeah. No,
So
that's a great. I
the
mean,
old, yeah,
yeah, no, that's a great. Well, and tonight you'll be speaking about Descartes as well. So there are them, and this is a big question, and but for those who aren't philosophers or historians of philosophy, you often intuit that there's a kind of a break, a rupture, if you will, between
right,
Aquinas and Descartes.
yes.
Is there a way to just synthesize that and say kind of what happened there?
I think the short and but correct way to look at this is to say that the scholastic way of looking at the world is based upon hylomorphism, the idea that there's form and matter that
Right.
are two essential co-principles of everything. And to understand form as the principle of actuality, matter as the principle of potentiality, and the way in which these two principles are co-principles, they're cooperative. You
Right.
have to see them cooperating everywhere. And Descartes' problem with this was that he was looking at a scholastic explanation of this that tended to treat the forms of things as though they were little entities.
Mm.
So Descartes says, for example, I was told there is such a thing as a form of gravity. So why does the heavy thing fall down? Well, it has this
Right.
form.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So Descartes said, well, I was led to believe that there would be something I could find. There would be a kind of
Mm.
thing, a kind of entity, but empirically it doesn't show up. And there's no way to deduce its existence, from other principles. So it's a kind of artificial way to explain something that Descartes thought we really can't explain anyway.
Right.
So Descartes is much more in line with the view of a mathematical, mechanical explanation of nature, such that in the end you don't really explain good old-fashioned efficient causality that I'm moving this cup and this cup.
Right.
That what you do is give a mathematical description of what's happening. So you understand mathematically what is force, and you determine that the smaller number cannot overcome the larger number, so the smaller force cannot move the larger
Right.
thing. But it's not. You're not really talking about causality. It's a mathematical relationship that you're dealing with. So yeah. So that would be. I said it was a short answer, but
No,
it
but
was. I
that's great. That's great.
never
Well,
never trust me on those
yeah,
things.
no, that's helpful. Well, and I know in your teaching you draw on a wide variety of philosophers. So we focused mainly on Descartes and Aquinas and
Right.
and Albert. But you've used Lucretius, you've
Yes.
used a wide variety of authors.
Right.
Do you find that today in our own age the same basic philosophical questions are still present in the young people you
Oh,
teach? Are they
absolutely.
still alive, or have they been suppressed through
No.
various means?
No. They're completely alive. So think about I don't know. Take Plato, take Lucretius, take Aristotle, and then jump ahead. Take Kant and Mill. They're all trying to tell us what does it mean to be a happy, fulfilled
Mhm.
human being. Now, who does not want
Right.
what what will really make you a happy person? And young people at age 18 are getting to the point where they see that there are certain problems, maybe with the idea of just pursuing money
Right.
or pleasure or drugs or whatever, whatever it is. They're beginning to recognize that some of the apparently easy answers are not going to work. Excuse me, and they're open
Right.
to a consideration of the thinking about the question of what is happiness. I often uh, it amazes me. I think to myself when I start the teaching in the fall. I think I'm 55 years older
Wow. Yeah.
than the students in front of me. What do I have in common? I don't know their music. I don't know what they read.
Right.
I and I probably don't follow the same sports teams.
Right.
I so and yet you get into these authors, and the age is irrelevant. I think. I think they are as interested in the problems, and they have to be. They're human beings. The problems don't go away, and the solutions. There's a range of them, but it's not infinite. The answers repeat in different forms, and you can see that. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't really think.
Mm.
I think the interest is there. What one of the differences is that I think that many young people are not readers
Right.
the way that I was, and so you need to think about that a little bit differently.
Mm.
But they can become thinkers. And this is the thing, and we have to remember that reading itself was not always thought to be the best way to spend your time if you want to pursue an academic life. Plato,
Oh, yeah.
it was afraid of what reading might do to the mind.
Right.
He wanted Aristotle to be arguing and not over there with a book. So
That's funny. Well, and we're
yeah,
worried about AI. I'm still trying to get over writing as a
yeah,
technology.
yeah, yeah,
So I think
yeah.
that's the
Well,
because I mean,
that's another.
well, and there was the belief that it was going to you couldn't, the memory would weaken
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you would rely on and you
yeah.
couldn't be in dialogue with something that was written down.
Right, right.
So
Yeah,
that's funny.
yeah. It's hard to know where that is going to go, but we need to bear in mind that it's artificial, all right, but it's not intelligence.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and do you sense so they're open when you're teaching them as undergraduates?
Yeah.
There's a program you started, Classics for Classics, I think,
Yes.
and so in
Yes.
which alumni come back to your
That's right.
institution, and you have these a week of seminars, and
Yes.
and sounds like a fascinating program. But they're ready. again to re-engage at that
Oh,
point? So is there hope for some of us who are older?
absolutely. Listen, I'm glad you mentioned that. Um, so every July for 1 week, I invite our alumni or anyone to come back to campus uh, for a week study of something. So it might be Descartes' Meditations, it might be John Stuart Mill. 3 years in a row, I did the classical modern political philosophers, so Hobbes,
Hmm.
Locke, and Rousseau, and so on. So I've been doing this for 15 years, and the pattern is very simple. So I assign readings that they can do in a week, and there are keeners. I send this out in April, and they're at it.
Yeah.
They're doing the readings then. So so I assign readings and I lecture informally. We discuss in the morning, and then in the afternoon I invite my colleagues from art history, from English literature, religious studies, whatever, to come and give a related lecture on anything
Hmm.
to what we're doing, to our author, anything they want to do, and they love doing it.
Hmm.
So I get five of them every
Well,
year, and they ask me whether they could next year. They hear what I'm
yeah.
doing, and they say, well, "Could I give a?"
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So, and the first year that I did it, I had 30, and I'm getting about 70 now.
Yeah.
And if you enjoy teaching, it is the absolute best for teaching, because you have a group of people who are there because they want to learn.
Right.
They've read the text. A few don't, but almost they do. Most of them do. They're interested. They ask good questions. They're smart. They're people with a little life experience, and there are no exams or essays to
Yeah.
mark. What?
What more could you ask for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. I of all the things I've done, I think I'm most proud of that.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has been very successful, and people people that come from all over Canada, and they adjust their vacation time,
Well.
and the friendships have grown up. They get together for lunch and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, that's
yeah.
great. Well, and do you find that as they become more open to this a wide variety of ideas, as sort of the rational capacities really become engaged in these kinds of inquiries begin, are they open to faith? Has that fluctuated over your teaching career?
The students, you mean?
Yeah.
Or oh, they still are. Yeah. Um, they. It's curious. When I started teaching, almost all of the students had some Christian background.
Mhm.
I mean, there were Jewish and Muslim students, but most of them they were Christian mostly,
Sure.
and so you could talk about the story of Abraham being asked to sacrifice Isaac, and they knew right
They knew right
away.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, they were. That's gone.
Mhm.
I can't count on a class full of students
Mhm.
knowing anything of that.
Right.
However, they really begin to think about what might be true about God. A first cause. Am I? Can I give an account
Mm.
meaningfully of my life and the world without God? Does that really work out? Does that?
Sure.
And so they genuinely do begin to think about this, and there are conversions. There
Yeah.
are.
Sure.
I don't. I, I don't know because of me, but they do. There's a receptivity there. Yeah, there's a
Mhm.
hostility in some
Sure.
quarters as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like you
Yeah,
have to be careful what you read.
that's right.
It might
That's
lead you down a path you weren't expecting.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that struck me preparing for this is just how beloved you are as a teacher. And so it made me think, well, what's the secret? What makes you a good teacher? You
Mm,
probably reflected on this. What are the marks of good teachers? Can
mm,
you, for those who might be teaching now or aspiring
right.
to teach,
Right.
what do you think sets apart someone who really can excel. Yeah, I'm thinking of the image of
Yeah.
leading people out of a cave. What does it take to be a good spelunker to get people out of the
You get
cave?
to lead them out. You have to love and know your subject. So the philosophy is not a problem for me. I love it. I I get to know it better all the time. I think I'm better at understanding the text now than I ever was. So you know what you're teaching and you love it. And if you have a mastery of your subject, your confidence
Right,
is never a problem. You go in there and you know what you're going to talk about.
right,
You know, and I remember way back when I I had to I had to teach a course in existentialism, and I didn't know much about it at all. This is really at the beginning of my teaching career, and it was a night class, and I would really, my wife can tell you, I'd have the text in front of me while I'm eating my supper, and I'd go over and teach it. Well, one time, a student couldn't come, and she asked me, could you record the class? And I said, oh, sure. Well, I made the mistake of playing it afterwards, and I thought it was dreadful. But there's an illustration. I mean, if I just didn't have the kind of confidence in
sure.
that. But anyway, so knowing and loving your subject, and then you have to think seriously about organization. You have to think about what a student should learn first and what second and why.
Right.
You got to have some idea of the proper sequence. And then I think the third thing is you have to have a real connection with your
Mm,
students, and that you don't have to fall in love with them or be, you don't, it doesn't have to be
yeah, close.
the kind of forever friendship or something like that. But you have to be
Mm,
genuinely connected to them and care about them and want to communicate.
sure.
You got and you have to be sensitive to when they're not listening or getting it, or there's something,
Sure.
so that's eye contact is so important. And during COVID, I taught courses online, and the terrible thing about that is I didn't know whether I was hitting home or not.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Those
anyway,
those those were
so I'd say
terrible.
those three things: really knowing and loving your subject, and that organization,
Yeah.
and and real connection with your students.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Well, we're gonna have a conference here later in the semester, actually at the end after the semester, about Newman's Circle of the Disciplines, and so
Oh,
that question of and it's not just Newman, but also
mm,
just how do you organize a liberal education?
right, right.
And so the plan is to draw heavily on Thomas, but also on Newman,
Hmm.
and reflect deeply on. We've been very successful here for many decades, but
Right,
it never hurts to stop and reflect on the order of and exactly what are the principles underlying this. But
right, right.
yeah, no, that's excellent. Well, we were talking earlier about sort of the difference between what it means to be a historian of philosophy and
Hmm.
being a philosopher.
Right,
And you
right.
mentioned something at one point in our previous conversation about Thomas, reading Thomas, and also just teachers of Thomas. There's this sense that you're encountering not just what someone said,
Right.
but the truth of things.
Yes.
And so, could you say a bit about where what's the overlap between being a historian of philosophy
Right.
and being a philosopher?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a very good question. Yeah. My teacher, Father Weisseipel, was fabulous discovery for me because he taught Aquinas because it was true. That was,
Right.
and he wasn't just another academic position. However, um, I think there's also a real value to teaching a philosopher whom you regard as wrong, but still is philosophically challenging and worth reading. And so, when you're teaching the philosopher, to teach in a way as though it's true. In other
Sure.
words, not to not to tear that position down. And now the goal, I think, of teaching the history of philosophy, the great thinkers, the goal, I think, should be not just that students have a catalog of opinions, but
Right.
that they are equipped to reject the positions that are false and to go with the positions that are true. So you want them to try you want the consequences to come out,
Right.
and yet you want to let the philosopher speak for himself,
Right.
and so that's I guess the kind of balance that I try to achieve,
Right.
um, and uh, I've had students kind of ask me, well, what do you think? And I'll tell them, but I want them to I want that to come when they've really grappled with the position
Yeah.
to start with.
Well, this it strikes me that this is one of the distinguishing marks of a Catholic curriculum versus a non-Catholic curriculum,
Mm,
insofar as they both can be they both can draw a great deal on primary sources,
yeah,
but very often the non-Catholic one will be rooted in a fundamental idea that you really can't discover the truth, and it really
hmm
whether it's
hmm
explicit or not, there is that implicit idea that
I think that's
you're
right.
basically boning up on all the things you should have learned in school,
Right.
and now you'll be fully equipped at the next dinner party to hold forth
That's right.
on
That's right.
and wow the crowd with
Yes.
your witticisms and insights. But on the other side, there is a sense that these books are a means to seeking the truth of
hmm
things, and there really is it is, however limited, however contingent, however partial, that we can still get a grasp.
Yes.
We can still lay hold, and it'll be just the beginning of, and we'll never come close to exhausting even the very beginning part of it.
Right.
But there is wisdom to be achieved.
That puts it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, that's the the great thinkers are great for a reason. You know, they really have had insight into uh, difficult matters that we're trying to understand, and there's a real value to seeing the way that you shouldn't go,
Right.
and to have an honest attempt along certain lines okay that we don't want to accept, but to see that is valuable. But I think that what you said
Mm.
is very nice,
Yeah.
that uh, there there are ways of helping us see the truth, and that and you know, the great thinkers. The other thing I think is worth noting about them is they tend to be very good logicians. And what I mean by that is, from their principles, they're going to lead you accurately to certain conclusions. They're going to get the argument right. But what may be wrong is where they started from.
Yeah.
So the real
Right.
value, I think, of studying the thinkers is to try to
Mm.
trace their thought back to the fundamental starting point,
Right.
and that is what you need to get right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in a reading group right now with some mid to late career gentlemen who live across, some in New York, some in DC. We call ourselves the hedgehogs for a
Huh?
variety of reasons, the old fox and the hedgehog. But
Yeah.
often one of the more challenging parts is when we're reading more modern authors is to actually, it's not what they say in the book, it's to figuring out where are they starting.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what are they assuming before they
Right.
lay out their argument?
Right. Right.
You spoke so eloquently of the academic life and your experience as a young person entering the academy and the buildings and how
Right.
people dress and things. Is this still a life that you would recommend? And would you have any advice for people who are thinking about becoming academics?
I absolutely would recommend it. Yeah. No, it still is great. I hope good young people will come along and revitalize the academy. And yeah, no, I would.
Yeah,
It's even when it's done. I don't want to say badly, but not so well. It still is worth doing.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
We need good professors.
That's right. We do.
We really do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, that's
And if you have good professors, let them go.
no, that's set him, let him run.
Yeah.
So that's good. Well, thank you so much for this time, and I'm looking forward to your lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Harne. Thank you very much.
Okay, bless.
My pleasure.
Okay. Thank you for listening to Christendom Conversations. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. To learn more about Christendom College and its mission, visit us at christendom.edu. Until next time, may we all continue to seek the truth, live the faith, and restore all things in Christ. God bless.